My name is John W. Laurie. I live on Union Hill Road, and I grew up in this community. I attended the Union Grove School. From there, I went to Dillwyn Middle School, known as S.J. Ellis School. From there to College Woodson High School. The proposed compressor station will be located approximately half mile from my property line. And I'm deeply concerned about the effects it will have on the air, the water, and the ground. I'm currently a cattle farmer, and from what I've heard and read, that the pollution that this compressor station will emit is very harmful to the livestock and to the animals, the domestic animals, and also to the pollution of the polluting of the water. We depend on our underground water source. We have to depend on wells for our water. And as far as the air is concerned, we currently have clean air, which is very pleasant and healthful to breathe, and we'd like to keep it this way. That's why I am opposed to the proposed compressor station or any business that'll be a threat to our air, our clean, healthy air, and our water, or harmful to our ground. This is our retirement home and our retirement area. I grew up on my grandfather's farm, which is located across from where I live now, for 19 and a half years before I left Buckingham. And after I returned, some 40 years later, I bought the property across the road from him. And I enjoy this property. So right now we have an orchard, we raise garden, and I like the vegetation and the birds, the flowers, and all those things that are pleasant to look at and listen to, and the quietness. And I'd like to keep it this way. So as far as the proposed compressor station, I am against it.
So John, why is there a road named Lori Lane? Why is there a road named Lori Lane?
That's the road that goes to our home place, to the property that my grandfather, Asbury Laurie, owned. And that was passed down to my father, Wilbur Laurie, and he passed it down to his offspring. That's our home place.
Now, you told me about some slave burials on your property or near it. Can you tell us about how you know that and where they are?
On On the property that I have now, there are two headstones. One of the names on the headstones was the mother of Fleming Shelton. He was the owner of the Shelton store on Shelton Store Road. And he was married to my daddy's first cousin, Annie Laurie Shelton.
And you said you went to school at Union Grove. When did Union Grove come separate from Union Hill?
Union Hill School, Jerusalem School, Warmison School, they were all one-room schools. They joined Union Grove School. I don't recall the year, but they came together. And they covered grades 1 through 5. And from there, we went to S.J. Ellis Middle School, which covered grades 6 through 8. And high school covered grades 9 through 12.
So who went to school with you in Union Hills? This when it was just Union Hill and it was 1 to 5. Like, who from Union Hill also went there that you played with and went to school with? The names.
There were the Hoppers, the Gordons. That was Lois Gordon, Joe Gordon, Berkeley Laurie, Virginia Hopper, Dorothy Hopper, Theodore Haskin. There may have been some more, but I can't recall the name now. This was a few years back.
So you didn't go to school with, none of you all went to school together. Oh, did you go to school with him? Yes. How about, would you come up and sit next to him for a moment? Talk about school a little bit.
My name is Ada Washington.
Okay, let's start again. So say
Ada Washington, and I live on Shelter Store Road. And I attended Union Grove School along with John. And I don't recall any of the Union Hill children attending Union Grove School. They had a separate school. When I remember them joining us over to Shelton Store to meet the bus, then we were going to high school. That's as far as I know.
Ms. Washington, do you remember, so so Union Grove Church has 2 cemeteries in it.
Yes.
Can you two Union Grove folks help us to understand what those are? Like, was one older than the other? Anything about, because when Union Grove started, but then those cemeteries are older.
Yes. Well, most of the members at Union Grove Church are buried behind the church. The other cemetery is the Claibornes. I'm a Claiborne. I was a Claiborne before I married a Washington. And we have our own private cemetery. I have my grandfather, my grandmother, uncles, aunts, they're all there. Some are Pride's, Harper, but that's a private cemetery. That's our cemetery.
That's very helpful.
My grandfather lived across the road. My grandfather, and I think that's where he raised his children. I don't recall. Well, I wouldn't recall because I was too young at that time.
So the church was across the road, right? I mean, sorry, the school was across the road.
Yes,
from
the school
church.
was across the road, up higher of my grandfather property.
And what about the Goodens? Or they bought that later? Okay, never
Yes.
mind, let's not ask about that then. So in your school, Union, just the younger one, the 1 to 5, right? How did people talk about your history here? Did the teacher ever talk about it?
Not that I can recall.
So
No.
the history of enslavement didn't come up.
No, it did not.
And do you have any idea, if this is uncomfortable, just tell me to
No,
stop.
no.
That if there was a sense that you wouldn't talk about it, or were people open, like if you could ask your grandparents about it?
Well, really, I don't think my father talked about it at all. But I do have a feeling that my grandfather was a slave. I don't have an idea who my great grandfather was.
And do you happen to know his name, now that we have the,
My grandfather's name is C.C. Claiborne. Was C.C. Claiborne. His wife name was Eliza. And most of the children are buried there.
John, how about you? Do you have family history about that?
I heard that my grandmother may have been in slavery. My daddy mother. I think her name was Anna. She was Anna Kyle, but she married Asbury Laurie. She may have been in slavery.
Could you spell her last name, please?
Maiden name
You said
or
Kyle, I don't know.
Kyle. And I've never seen either one of them. They died before I was born. And the only grandparents I saw was my grandmother on my mother's side. I saw her. I think she died when I was 6 years old.
And that's
And she was a Morgan. She lived in Andersonville. And the property where I live now, that property used to belong to Sister Washington, uncle, her daddy brother, Robert Claiborne.
So, Ms. Washington, could you talk a little bit about your closeness to the compressor station, or anything you want to say about concerns, water, air, whatever?
Well, I'm quite away from the proposed compressor station. But by coming around the road, but by coming through the woods, it's like a half a mile. And I'm really concerned about it. I'm concerned about if the pressure release is released, how it would affect us, by we are inhaling that fume or whatever. Also, I'm concerned about the water because I do have a well and several other things. My health is it's mostly what I'm concerned about. I have a sister who lives on part of the was a property, and she's very close to it, and she's sick. She has bad health, very bad health, and I'm really concerned about it. I'm concerned about my neighbors who live closer to it. It if if she's concerned, so am I, because we are our keeper, which makes a difference. What she goes through, it bothers me. Or what they go through, it really bothers me.
Now, do you have any concerns about being able to pass on this land to people coming up in your family, or this, the value of land?
Um, when my father passed, we're a big family. I'm number 10. We was 14 children, 7 girls and 7 boys. So my father gave each one of the children a portion of land. Those that were away, I had a brother in California, and he had his own home, so he has passed now. One in Wilmington, Delaware, and they didn't intend to come back home because there was no jobs here. I stayed here as long as I could but I couldn't find a job, so I had to leave. I went to Washington, and I worked for a while, but my father lived, everybody else had left home, and my father was by himself. So when my father became ill, I came back home to take care of him. Then my sister that was living in New Jersey, she moved back home, and we took care of our father until he passed. But he had a proportion of giving each one of his children a portion of property, and the rest was left to my sister and me. I kept the property as long as I could, held on to it as long as I could. But it got to the point where I couldn't keep the taxes up, so I had to get rid of it. The last piece of property that I got rid of, my neighbors moved 2 years ago. They built a home there. So all of the property is gone except for the 3 acres that I'm living on.
What about you, John? Well, the idea of the value of your farm and your investment and your family's long history, you have concerns about that because of the...
Yes, I do. With this proposed compressor station, the property value wouldn't be worth much. And besides, who would want to live here under those conditions and breathe this unhealthy air? Number one, with the spacing of the shutoff valve on the 42-inch frac gas line, when the blowdown occur, there's so much material in between the shutoff valve that has to be released. That's bad. That's going in the air, on the ground. The ones closest to the compressor station has to be the first to breathe it. But it won't stay in this area. It will travel. People in Buckingham, they'll breathe it as well. The whole project and the special use permit, it's unbelievable how it was done. Buckingham was taken advantage of. I don't believe they were aware at first how it was done. They were manipulated. We had a meeting, it's a matter of record. One of the Dominion reps stood up and mentioned they've been dealing with Buckingham for 15 years. They had donated to the schools, to as far as job, to the wood yard on the other side of Deerwind. They had the administration, the new administration building, they built that. And they have put money, spread money around in the county of Buckingham over around 15 years. They knew what they were doing. So when it came time for them to tell Buckingham, we want to build a compressor station, Buckingham was obligated. That made it easier for them to come in. And right at that point, the special use permit was allowed, which was illegal. This agriculture area. But it was passed by our board of supervisors. Then the board, all our regulatory agencies, they stumbled over it. We spoke at each one of our regulatory boards. Many letters have been written. Many experts have spoken about the harm, the danger involving the pollutant from this proposed compressor station, what the damage would be, including the sedimentation. It's still passed. So right now, it's tied up in court.
So John and Ada, does Dominion provide you with electricity and gas?
No.
Can you repeat it as a sentence so we can edit it?
No, they do not. Oh, no, they do not supply me with anything.
And were one of you, anybody who asked if they could have access to the internet on their wireless tower? Were you present at that meeting? Can you report that?
I wasn't present.
John?
Were you present?
No, not as I'm aware of. That was passed. The meetings that I attend, whatever Dominion asked for, it was passed by the Board of Supervisors because it appeared that Buckingham was obligated to give Dominion whatever they asked for.
I think that's good. And then, how do you want to work this?
My name is Ella Rose. I was born and raised in Nelson County, Virginia, where I still have family. I live on South James River Highway. And in Nelson County, I still have family. Their lives are also being plagued by the large pipeline that will be running through their property. So I relocated here about 6 years ago in Buckingham County. My home has been sitting there since 1998, but I had to work another 12 years so I could relocate here. It was my dream, after working in cities and for many years, to relocate to a quiet, rural place where I could experience peace and quiet. It means a lot to me. I am surrounded by pine forest and open land, and I often see wildlife from my windows. I have a small piece of property, 1.9 acres, and I want to enjoy all 1.9 acres. My property is within 150 feet from the boundaries of the land where Dominion purchased the land to build a compressor station on. This particularly concerns me. Since the fall of 2014, I have been learning a lot about compressor station. I regularly attend meetings with Friends of Buckingham and have submitted comments to FERC and spoken at many of the hearings regarding the pipeline and the proposed compressor station. Despite all the time and worries I have spent on the threat to my life, I do not believe that I have been heard or that Union Hill community as a whole has been listened to. I worry about the noise from the compressor station, which will be constant 24 hours a day for the rest of my life. I will never be able to get away from it. I will be disturbed. It will disturb the wildlife, and I will miss seeing them. I know that the construction will be noisy. I can't hold this. Yeah, thank you. I know that the construction will be noisy and disturbing too. Trees will be cut. Oh, Lord. And large vehicles and equipment will be close by. They have already started doing some cutting, and I do not look forward to all of this disturbance. I have also learned that Dominion wants to erect a telecommunication tower near my property. I worry. I wonder how bright the lights will be, and I will still be able to see the stars and enjoy the beautiful, clear night skies. Will that be no longer? I guess the worst of my concern is that I fear that all the pollution caused by the compressor station will make our air unhealthy to breathe and will harm my health. My sister-in-law, who lives across the street, already has respiratory problems. Many of us are elderly and are already becoming more vulnerable to health problems. I fear that breathing the air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, year after year causes health problems. I am also worried what will happen to my well water. Will there be a leakage into my well system? I know that this has happened in many other places with compressor stations and pipelines. Last but not least, I worry about explosion. I will be very close to the location where Dominion wants its compressor station and the new pipeline that they want to build and the existing Transcoast pipeline. If there was an explosion, all of us here would be gone. There would be nothing left. I do not believe how that I do believe that this location was selected because we are predominantly African Americans here, and that it was hoped that we would not speak up and fight back. Our lives count too, and they should not be sacrificed in favor of financial interests. It was difficult for me to speak up at first. It's still difficult, but I feel that it is important that I do speak up, and I do not everything and do everything I can to fight back against this terrible intrusion on our lives. I came here for peace and quiet, and that this was not my plan, and this was not the plan for my retirement. I have worked hard all of my life, and now it seemed everything of value to me will be threatened. Will be taken away if I am forced to live with this noisy, polluting compressor station and dangerous pipeline nearby. I oppose this compressor station and this pipeline. Terrible.
Is that all your pages?
No, well,
Did you do all the one you did on Sunday?
did this one on Sunday.
Yeah, read that, please, if you want.
Start over with my name. I don't have to start over with my name, do
You
Ah.
can say your name, I can edit anything.
yeah, okay. My name is Ella Rose. I was born and raised in Nelson County, Virginia, and retired to Buckingham County, Virginia about 6 years ago. I am an active participant of Friends of Buckingham, and I learned about the Atlantic Coast Pipeline and associated compressor station in 2014, and I have been advocating against this proposed project ever since. Opposing this pipeline has been a full-time job during my retirement. I have submitted comments to FERC, and I have spoken at multiple DEQ hearings. Despite my effort to make my voice be heard, I do not believe that we have been heard and that Union Hill community as a whole has been listened to. Our Buckingham County Board of Supervisors from our district has attended our meeting twice, and I truly thank him for that. And no one from the federal government since then they have. Last month, I spoke from the governor's office in Richmond. It seemed as if no one cares about my concerns and those of the community. I am especially troubled that our voices has been ignored because compressor station will be very noisy and is only half a mile away from my property. My property is within 150 feet from the distance from which Dominion has purchased property that is adjacent to what I own. I purchased my property in 1998 and retired to Buckingham County 13 years later. I spent most of my life working in cities, and they were noisy and chaotic. I retired to my current home seeking a peaceful, serene, and quiet location. Buckingham is a very rural county. My property in Buckingham County is surrounded by farms and woodlands. I have 1.9 acres, and I want to enjoy all 1.9 acres. The noise from the compressor station, construction and operation of the compressor station will run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, will severely and permanently diminish my continued use and enjoyment of my serene and peaceful property. Traffic from construction of the compressor station, construction of the pipeline, tree cutting from the pipeline, and the use of large vehicles and equipment will also harm my enjoyment of my property. One thing I particularly value about my home is that I can walk I can walk into my own backyard and observe birds, deer, turkey, and other wildlife. I see all of these animals very regularly. I see turkey up almost every day during October and November, and deer all year round. I am aware that a bear lives nearby my house, and I hope to see the bears one day also. I consider myself very lucky to have all of this beauty and nature in my own backyard. I don't have to go to Shenandoah National Park for this. I can just walk outside my door. Unfortunately, I believe the noise pollution from the compressor station will disturb my enjoyment of this disturbed wild location and will frighten the wildlife away. I will no longer have the privilege of observing them. I have also expressed my concern previously about the location of a telecommunication tower 500 feet away from my property that is necessary to operate the compressor station. This tower will shine a bright light down 24 hours a day and will disturb my sleep. It will permanently disturb my ability to enjoy the stars from my yard. In addition to the above concern, I fear that the compressor station will permanently degrade the wonderful air quality in the area. This harmful impact on clean air would take away from my overall enjoyment of my property and community, and I fear it would harm my health. I am aware that living near compressor station aggravates respiratory health, and there's nothing being done to prevent my health from deteriorating as a result of the air pollution that will plague my community. I am deeply concerned that I could develop respiratory problems as a result of air pollution. I am also concerned about the impact the compressor station will have on my well water. Compressor station operated on a high-risk condition creates high pressure, which causes corrosion that might leak toxic contamination into my water system. The information that have provided for me so far is insufficient to convince me that my well water will be protected. It also causes vibration, cracks, leaking to failure, explosion, and fire. I am troubled by the reason my neighborhood was selected for this location of the compressor station. My neighborhood is predominantly African American, and I believe that it was selected in hope that our community will not be able to speak up or fight back. As I stated before, it seemed clear that the voices of Union Hill have been ignored throughout this entire process. Our lives count too, and they should not be sacrificed in favor of financial interests. I have been involved on an issue. I have never been involved in an issue before like this. However, as a result of the close proximity of the compressor station to my home and the way in which my voice and many other voices have been ignored during this process, I feel that I had to speak up and advocate against this project. I moved here to enjoy the freedom and the atmosphere. I love nature, love looking at animals that crosses through my backyard, the deer, the wild turkey. I moved here to enjoy the rest of my life, but the compressor station is going to scare away the animals, ruin out my quality of life. Living right next to a noisy, polluting industrial facility will severely lessen my enjoyment of all of these unique characteristics that brought me here to Buckingham County, and that I hope to enjoy throughout the rest of my life. This is not the plan I had for my retirement, and it is disheartening to know that everything that I've worked for all of my life, which was to own my own home and to live in peace the rest of my life, will be taken away if I am forced to live with this large, noisy, polluting compressor station nearby. I oppose this compressor station and pipeline. Thank you.
So Ella, can you talk a little bit about growing up and, you know, what you, so where did you go to school?
I went to school in Nelson County, and I graduated from Nelson County High School in 1961 and moved to Washington, D.C. to work because there was no work here. And I lived in D.C. and Maryland for 51 years before I relocated back here. My whole intention all my life is to move back home when I retire.
And where was your grade school?
My grade school was in Midway Mills, Virginia. It was two-room school. One room from the first grade to the fourth, then the second room from the fourth to the seventh.
And was this a segregated school?
It was segregated, yes.
In your school, was it taught anything about the lives of slaves or the history of this area?
It wasn't taught in school, but I have learned about my family history through family reunion gathering.
Right. Would you share anything you learned?
Okay.
Names or where people were enslaved?
You ask questions like that, sometimes they won't even answer. But I do know that my family history, my great-great-grandfather was Jeremiah Dixon, one of the founders of the Mason and Dixon line was my great-great-grandfather, the fifth great-grandfather.
Are there any other family names that you know of?
No, I can't.
Ben Dixon?
No, I can't recall. I tried to look for the family history. I couldn't find that background from the family reunion. And everybody has passed away on me. My aunt that passed away in 2007 was 99. She had one more month to go before she was 100. She was the one that gave me our family background, history background.
And her name?
And Aunt Bertha Shelton. Then my father passed away in 2007, and he was 98 years old. But my Aunt Bertha Shelton gave us the family history.
And are you willing to share anything she gave?
Oh, God, I can't remember all of that stuff.
Okay, if you
Right
think
now.
of it,
I
you
will.
can ask again.
I
That would
will.
be great.
I will.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
My name is Chad Oba, and I live here. I live nearby on the Union Hill Woods Corner area of Buckingham County. I'm about a little over a mile from the proposed location of the compressor station. And I've been actively doing this work since day one. And so I've developed a very close relationship with people in the neighborhood who are being threatened by not only the pipeline but the compressor station. And the longer I do this work, the more I'm just struck with the immorality of it. That this is being located here, that we don't have many people here don't have internet connections. It's been difficult to organize because we have to call everyone individually. I mean, most people. Some people do have internet, but it's been terribly difficult. And luckily, Pastor Paul Wilson. I visited with him very early on. I remember he was studying his Bible down at Union Grove Church, where he also preaches, and now the two churches have united, Union Hill and Union Grove. And I knocked on his window tentatively, and I said, he rolled down, and I said, "Can I speak to you?" And I told him, there's something that's being proposed by Dominion Energy, and I don't think it's going to be good for the health or welfare of the people here in the community. I'd like to talk to you about it. And I only got maybe 3 sentences out of my mouth, and he immediately said, "That's not going to happen." So he got on board immediately, and this is where we have our meetings here in the church. He makes announcements, and thank God for that, because, we have to call people, so that helps to bring people together. But personally impact myself, I've always been really concerned about the health impacts. Early on, the first year of organizing was all about educating ourselves. What does it mean to have a compressor station in our neighborhood? And so we brought in people from all over, from New York State and from Maryland and Pennsylvania. And we did PowerPoints and tried to educate everyone to take a look at what this might mean, living with one. So we know that these are just nasty. They're the Cadillacs of polluters, compressor stations. They're not good. They're not good to live with. The air, 24/7, 365 days of the year, year after year, the buildup in a human organism. People, it's not a way to live. It's not a way to live. And for us in this very rural, quiet area, I can't tell you, since this has happened, how many times I've gone out and sat on my porch and listened to silence and realized how much that really means to me. Or whippoorwills, or birds, and watched fireflies. They say that fireflies only exist in places that have good air. And to not be able to have that, there's a lot of things we go without here because we're out here in the middle of nowhere. It's very remote. Services are far away. We don't have a lot of medical facilities, stores, movies, things that people in more populated areas have. But we have this peace and quiet that I know a lot of other folks probably talked about. And that's the real value of living here, is we have clean air and we have this wonderful, quiet, peaceful setting to live in. So to have that taken away from us and to be threatened and be enforced to live against our will for the rest of our lives with a nasty, polluting compressor station is wrong. It's morally wrong. It's terribly wrong. And Dominion has done a very, very good job of convincing people that there won't be anything wrong with this, and we're going to follow all the regulations. Well, the regulations they're not up to par. They don't protect us. They regulate, but they don't protect. So health is a real big concern for me. My husband is a Japanese sculptor, and he is now in the process of putting together an outdoor studio where we live. He's previously worked out of a quarry over in Schuyler, Virginia, but he's going to be, or he plans to, and I just looked at him this morning and I said, how can you be outside, working outside all the time and be exposed to this? We don't know what our next step is. We don't know how to plan for the future. We're getting older. We live in an old antebellum farmhouse that needs lots of upkeep. lots of grass to mow. We know that it would be very, very difficult to sell this home, and property values are going to plummet. We know that. People do not want to live near compressor stations or pipelines. So this uncertainty is, I think the worst part of it is just not knowing what our future holds. And I work as a mental health provider here in the community, and I've just watched people and felt it within myself, this level of stress, this constant foreboding of what's next, and will I have to live with this, and what will it be like? And the body can only take stress over a long period of time without really having really quite awful results. So aside from air emissions, just the stress, just to worry about it and what that would mean for your health. So that's some of the personal things. I worry about property, I worry about health, worry about water. I worry about how, I have a lateral line of the Transco Williams, which is supposed to hook right into this pipeline, right across the road from me. And how is our water going to be affected? All these underground aquifers, they all hook up. When they start digging and blowing things apart, and when they discharge water from the compressor station, how is that going to affect us? So air, water, property loss, stress, I find all of those things extremely concerning. Thank you.
My name is Ruby Laurie. I live in the Union Hill area. I moved here in 2003, so I've been here almost 15 years. I moved back to Buckingham with my husband. I am originally from California, and upon moving here, I was not too enthused about it at first because it was dark when we came, and I was looking for some street lights. But after being here and seeing how beautiful it is, especially in the summertime, how green it is, I really enjoy it, and I understand why my husband wanted to come back, because of this greenery and the peace and quiet and stress-free atmosphere. And I want to read this statement that I wrote a few months ago, and the statement is regarding environmental justice. Environmental justice for people of color should actually be called environmental injustice. As you may know, communities with people of color are chosen for these toxic waste facilities. These facilities are life-threatening because of the presence of poisonous, toxic gases that we would have to breathe. Another thing is, Dominion keeps saying that they have our best interest at heart. If that was so, why would they put in thinner pipelines in this rural area? And why would they have the cutoff valves so far apart as compared to the more populated areas? And I'd just like to say, is this justice? My husband likes to raise cattle, and he is an animal lover. He likes cattle, donkeys, sheep, dogs, deer, and so on. So one of my concerns are the effect this noise will have on our cattle, especially the newborn calves, and also our donkey. The other concern are these dangerous chemicals that will be released into the air that our cattle will have to breathe. as well as the effect these gases will have on our groundwater for our animals. So it has been proven that cattle hear high-frequency sounds much better than humans. Can you imagine the stress, the performance, and the behavior this noise will have on our cattle, as well as the newborn calves on a continual basis? Can you imagine the trauma this noise will have when the mother cow is trying to give birth? This is one of the reasons why I'm so adamant about this proposed pipeline and compressor station. It only is not fair to the animals, but it is also not fair to us humans. And I'm sure other people have spoken on the water, and that is a very great concern for us, because without water, there's no life. We have to have water in order to live. This area is an agricultural area where we raise crops and cattle and dairy cows. It's not for what Dominion wants, which they had originally said that we would be able to receive this natural gas. We would be able to tap into this natural gas. But I learned that this gas will be fracked. And the way I learned about this fracking was my dear friend, Chad, who knocked on our door one day and gave us information on this natural gas that was coming through. And I said, well, yes, well, we had natural gas in California. There weren't any problems. And then she said, yes, but it's going to be fracked. Well, at that time, I didn't know what fracking gas meant, but I soon found out. Like I said, I am concerned about the water. Nobody can live without water. You can live without food for large amounts of time, but no one can live without water. And that's why I'm so adamant about this monster that's coming into our area. It is not user-friendly. And I just want to say that I'm praying to God that this compressor station does not come into our community, because we won't be able to go outside at night and look up at the stars and see the moon because of this thing that's coming through. My husband and I are retired, and we want to live out our golden years, and that's what we plan to do. Live out our golden years in this quiet, peaceful area. Thank you.